At 2:17 in the morning, when most of Denver slept under a blanket of February snow, Daniel Hayes heard three sharp knocks that would shatter everything he'd spent 4 years building. His daughter was asleep upstairs. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, and standing on his porch, trembling in a designer coat that cost more than his truck, was Isabella Vaughn, the 30-year-old billionaire CEO who signed his paychecks and had never once looked at him like he was anything more than employee number 4,447. But tonight, she wasn't looking at him like an employee. Tonight, she was looking at him like he was the only person left in the world. If you want to see how far this story can travel, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments below. Let me know where you're watching from. Daniel's hand stayed on the doorknob longer than it should have. Through the frosted glass, he could see her outline. The straight posture she always carried in board meetings now curved forward, shoulders hunched against the wind. Her breath came out in visible puffs, quick and uneven. He opened the door. "Mr. Hayes?" Her voice cracked on his name, not the smooth, commanding tone she used during quarterly reviews. This was something raw, something that didn't belong to the woman who'd once fired 3 vice presidents in a single afternoon without blinking. "Ms. Vaughn." He glanced past her, half expecting to see a company car idling in his driveway, some emergency that required his immediate attention. But there was nothing. Just her Mercedes, parked at an angle like she'd pulled in too fast and hadn't bothered to straighten it. "I know what time it is." She wrapped her arms around herself. The coat was Burberry, probably. Daniel didn't know designers, but he knew expensive when he saw it. "I know I shouldn't be here. Is everything okay? Did something happen at work?" She laughed, but it came out wrong. Bitter. "Work? Right. Of course you'd think—" She stopped, shook her head. "Can I come in? Please. Just for a minute." Every reasonable thought in his head said no. This was Isabella Vaughn, the woman who'd inherited her father's tech empire at 26 and somehow made it worth 3 times what it had been. The woman whose face appeared on Forbes covers and TED Talk thumbnails. His boss. But she was also shaking, and it was 14 degrees outside. He stepped back. "Yeah, come in." She moved past him into the narrow entryway, and he caught a scent he hadn't expected. Not perfume, but something sharper. Whiskey, maybe. Her heels clicked on the hardwood, too loud in the sleeping house, and she stopped abruptly, looking around like she'd forgotten what rooms were supposed to look like when people actually lived in them. The living room was exactly what it was. Tired furniture from his marriage, toys in a basket by the couch, yesterday's mail still scattered on the coffee table. Daniel watched her take it in, watched her eyes pause on the framed photo of Emma on the mantel, his daughter at 6, gap-toothed and laughing. "You have a beautiful home," Isabella said quietly. "It's small. It's real." She turned to face him, and for the first time since he'd known her, 3 years, 4 months, countless meetings where he'd presented campaigns and she'd dissected them with surgical precision, she looked completely lost. "Everything in my life is curated. Do you understand that? Staged. My apartment was designed by someone I've never met. My furniture was selected by an interior decorator who charged me $40,000 to make sure nothing felt personal. I have art on my walls that I hate, but it's the right art to have." Daniel closed the front door carefully, keeping his voice low. "Ms. Vaughn." "Stop calling me that." The words came out harder than she probably meant them. "Please. I'm not your boss right now. I'm just someone who needed to go somewhere that wasn't—" She trailed off, pressed her fingers against her temples. "You want to sit down?" She nodded. He gestured toward the couch, moved a stuffed elephant out of the way. She sat on the edge of the cushion, still wearing her coat, still holding herself like she might break apart if she relaxed. Daniel took the chair across from her, the old recliner that groaned under his weight. "You want some coffee? I've got a pot going." "You're awake at 2 in the morning drinking coffee?" "I'm awake at 2 in the morning working on the Riverside campaign." He nodded toward his laptop, still open on the dining table, screen glowing in the dark. "Pitch is Monday. You know how it is." "I know how I've made it." Isabella looked at her hands. Her nails were painted a dark red, perfectly manicured. One of them had a small chip near the tip, and she kept running her thumb over it. "I know what I ask of people, what I demand, the hours, the pressure, the expectation that everything you produce needs to be exceptional because anything less is insulting. That's the job. It's not sustainable. She looked up at him. You know it's not. But you all do it anyway because you're afraid of me. Daniel shifted in his chair. I wouldn't say afraid. What would you say? Cautious. He watched her face, trying to read what this was really about. You've got a reputation for not accepting excuses. People respect that. Fear and respect look similar sometimes. Do you respect me, Daniel? It was the first time she'd used his first name. In 3 years, she'd never once dropped the formality. Always Mr. Hayes in meetings, Hayes in emails, never Daniel. Yeah, he said. I do. Why? She leaned forward, and something in her expression changed. Desperate, almost. Why do you respect someone who's pushed you to work weekends? Who's sent you home past midnight more times than you can probably count? Who's called you on Christmas Eve because a client decided they wanted revisions? Because the work matters to you. Daniel spoke carefully, aware of how strange this conversation was, how much it felt like stepping through a door he couldn't see. You're not asking us to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. And you're honest. When something's good, you say it. When it's not, you don't pretend. I've worked for people who smiled to your face and destroyed you behind closed doors. You don't do that. Isabella was quiet for a moment. Then she stood, crossed to the window that looked out over his small backyard. I was on a date tonight. Daniel didn't know what to say to that. A blind date, she continued, her voice flat. Set up by my mother, who's decided at 30 I'm running out of time to be married. His name was Preston Ashford III. Princeton, Stanford Business School, hedge fund manager. Net worth somewhere around $800 million, which mother assured me was very respectable, even if it wasn't quite in our bracket. She laughed that bitter laugh again. Do you know what he asked me within the first 10 minutes? What? He asked if I planned to keep working after we had children. She turned from the window. Not if I wanted children. Not even if I wanted to get married. He asked when I planned to step back from the company to focus on family, because he couldn't have a wife who was more successful than him. It would be emasculating. Jesus. I told him I had no intention of stepping back from anything, that I'd built this company into something my father never could have imagined, and I wasn't going to hand it over to a board of men who'd run it into the ground within 5 years. Isabella's jaw was tight. He told me I was being emotional, that I needed to think about legacy, about what really matters. And then he ordered us another bottle of wine without asking me if I wanted it, because apparently that's what men like him do. They decide things. Daniel watched her pace, watched the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands kept moving like they needed something to hold on to. So I left, she said, got up from the table, walked out of that restaurant, and sat in my car for 45 minutes trying to figure out where to go. And I realized I didn't have anywhere. My apartment is empty. My friends are business associates who'd sell the story to tabloids by morning. My mother would tell me I overreacted, that Preston was a good match, that I'm too picky, and I kept thinking about you. His chest tightened. Me. You. She stopped pacing, stood in the middle of his living room looking at him with an expression he couldn't name. You're the only person who talks to me like I'm human. Not like I'm this thing to be managed or impressed or conquered. Just human. Even in meetings, when everyone else is trying to guess what I want to hear, you just tell me what you actually think. Do you know how rare that is? I probably shouldn't. You should. She cut him off. You absolutely should. And I drove here because I needed to be somewhere where someone might actually see me instead of what I represent. Where someone might talk to me like I'm not a walking stock portfolio. Daniel stood slowly, awareness creeping in that this was dangerous. Not physically, but in every other way that mattered. Isabella, I'm done pretending, she said, and the words came out fierce, strong. I'm done sitting at tables with men who think my ambition is a personality flaw. I'm done smiling through conversations with people who want me to be smaller, quieter, more acceptable. And I'm done lying to myself about who I actually want. The silence between them filled up with everything unsaid. You're my boss, Daniel said finally. I know. This could destroy both of us. I know that too. She took a step toward him, then another. But I also know I've spent 3 years watching you be brilliant and kind and real, and I can't keep pretending I don't feel something. I can't keep going to events with men who see me as a trophy, while the only person who's ever made me feel like myself is the one I'm not supposed to want. His mind was racing. Emma asleep upstairs, his job, the mortgage, the careful, controlled life he'd built after Sarah died, after everything fell apart, and he had to piece himself back together one day at a time for his daughter's sake. "I have a kid," he said, voice rough. "I know. A 4-year-old who's already lost her mother, who needs stability, who needs me to make smart decisions, not reckless ones." "Is this reckless?" Isabella was close now, close enough that he could see the smudged mascara at the corner of her eye, the imperfection in her otherwise perfect appearance. "Or is it the first honest thing either of us has done in years?" "I don't know." And he didn't. His whole body felt like it was vibrating at a frequency he couldn't control. "I don't know what this is." "Then let's find out." Her hand rose, hesitated, then settled against his chest, right over his heart. "Let's stop pretending we don't both feel it. Just for tonight, just to see what happens when we're honest." Daniel caught her wrist. Not to push her away, just to hold on. "If we do this, I know the risks." "No." He met her eyes. "You know your risks, but I'm the one with everything to lose. You're a billionaire. If this goes wrong, you'll be fine. You'll still have your company, your money, your options. Me? I'm a single dad with a mortgage and a daughter who depends on me. If I lose this job, you won't. You can't promise that." "Yes, I can." Her free hand came up to his face, fingers trembling against his jaw. "I can promise you that no matter what happens between us, I will never let you lose what you've built for her. I will never put your child at risk. That's not who I am." He wanted to believe her, wanted it so badly it scared him. "I haven't done this since my wife died," he said quietly. "Haven't let myself feel anything for anyone because it was easier to just shut down. Focus on Emma, focus on work. Don't complicate things." "I haven't done this ever." Isabella's voice dropped to a whisper. "I've never felt anything real with anyone. Every relationship I've had was strategic or shallow or both. I've never stood in someone's living room at 2 in the morning and felt like I might actually matter beyond what I can provide." "You matter," Daniel said, and meant it. She kissed him. It wasn't smooth or practiced. It was desperate and messy and tasted like whiskey and uncertainty. Her hands fisted in his shirt, and his arms went around her automatically, pulling her closer even as his brain screamed that this was wrong. This was complicated. This was going to blow up his entire life. But then she made this small sound against his mouth, vulnerable and real, and he stopped thinking altogether. They pulled apart, breathing hard. Isabella's eyes were wide, pupils blown, and she looked as shocked as he felt. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay." "Yeah." His heart was trying to punch through his ribs. "That was Daniel?" A small voice from upstairs. "Daddy?" He stepped back so fast he nearly stumbled. Emma. He'd forgotten for just a moment that his daughter was sleeping 20 feet above them. "Stay here," he told Isabella, already moving toward the stairs. "Just give me a minute." He took the steps 2 at a time, found Emma standing in her doorway, rubbing her eyes. She was wearing the princess pajamas she'd begged for at Target, her dark hair tangled from sleep. "Hey, baby." He crouched down to her level. "You okay?" "I heard voices." She yawned. "Who's here?" "Just someone from work, sweetheart. They needed to talk to Daddy about a project." Emma peered past him toward the stairs. "At nighttime?" "Sometimes grown-ups have to work at nighttime. It's boring. You should go back to bed." "I'm thirsty." Of course she was. Daniel scooped her up, carried her to the bathroom, got her a cup of water. She drank it slowly, studying his face with the unnerving perception kids sometimes had. "You look weird," she announced. "I look tired. It's late." "Your face is red." "Emma, drink your water." She drained the cup, handed it back to him. "Can you read me a story?" "Not tonight, baby. It's way past bedtime. But tomorrow we can read whatever you want, okay? Promise?" "Promise." He kissed her forehead, tucked her back into bed, waited until her breathing evened out before heading downstairs again. Isabella was still standing where he'd left her, but she'd put distance between herself and the spot where they'd kissed. Her arms were wrapped around her middle again, defensive. I should go, she said immediately. I shouldn't have come. I wasn't thinking clearly. You're not wrong, Daniel said carefully. But you're also not wrong about what you said. About us. She looked at him. I feel it too, he admitted. Have for a while. Longer than I wanted to admit. And I don't know what to do about it because you're right. This could destroy everything. But I also can't keep pretending you're just my boss because you're not. You haven't been for a long time. Then what do we do? Isabella asked, and she sounded lost again. Young, nothing like the woman who commanded boardrooms. I don't know. He crossed the room, didn't touch her, but stood close enough that he could see the pulse jumping in her throat. But maybe we start by being honest, really honest, about what we want, what we can handle, what lines we can't cross. I want you. The words came out immediate, certain. I've wanted you for over a year. Since that campaign meeting where you told me my strategy was short-sighted and then showed me a better approach without making me feel small about it. Since you stayed late with the team and ordered pizza instead of expense account dinners. Since I realized you were the only man in my entire company who never once tried to use proximity to me as leverage. Daniel's throat was tight. I want you too. Want to know what you're like when you're not being the CEO. Want to hear you laugh without it being calculated. Want to... He stopped himself. Want to what? Want to see if this thing between us is real, or if it's just two lonely people finding each other at the wrong time. And if it's real, Isabella asked, then we figure it out carefully, because I meant what I said. I can't risk Emma's stability. She's already been through too much. I understand. Isabella reached out, let her fingers brush against his. I would never ask you to choose between her and me. She comes first. Always. You say that now? I'll say it every time it matters. Her grip tightened. I don't have children, Daniel, but I'm not heartless. I know what it means to be a parent, and I know what it means to lose one. Something flickered across her face, old pain. My father died when I was 26. Heart attack in his office, completely unexpected. I found him, tried to do CPR while waiting for paramedics, felt his heart stop under my hands. Jesus, Isabella. Everyone said I handled it well, stepped into his role seamlessly, kept the company stable through the transition. But the truth is I just shut down, stopped feeling things because feeling things hurt too much, threw myself into work because work made sense, numbers made sense, strategy made sense. People didn't. She was crying now, silently, tears tracking down her face. You make sense, she whispered. You and your daughter and this house that's actually lived in. You make sense in a way nothing else does, and I drove here tonight because I couldn't stand one more second of my perfectly curated life that feels like I'm suffocating. Daniel pulled her in, let her cry against his chest while he tried to figure out how they'd ended up here. How a routine night of campaign work had turned into this. His boss in his arms, both of them crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Okay, he said finally. Okay, we'll figure this out. She pulled back, wiped her eyes. How? Honestly, slowly. We take this one step at a time and we communicate. About everything. If something feels wrong, we say it. If we need to stop, we stop. And we protect Emma above everything else. Above us? There is no us if she's not protected. He said it gently but firmly. That's non-negotiable. Isabella nodded. I can work with that. Can you? He searched her face. Because I need you to understand, she's going to meet you eventually if this continues. She's going to ask questions. She's going to get attached, and if this falls apart, she's the one who'll pay for it. So I need to know you're sure, really sure. I'm sure about how I feel. Isabella's voice steadied. I can't promise the future. Neither of us can. But I can promise I'll be honest with you. I'll respect your boundaries. And I won't let this affect your job. It's already affecting my job. Then we'll deal with it. Together. She reached up, touched his face again. I didn't come here expecting any of this. I came here because you felt safe. Because in 3 years, you're the only person who's ever made me feel like I could breathe. And maybe that's not a good enough reason to risk everything. But it's the truth. Daniel closed his eyes, felt her hand warm against his skin.
We're really doing this? I think we already are. He kissed her again, softer this time, slower.
And when they broke apart, something had shifted. This wasn't just attraction or loneliness or impulse anymore. This was a choice they were making together, consequences and all. Stay, he said, just to talk. We don't have to, Emma's upstairs and this is all really new, but just stay a little longer. Isabella smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd seen from her. Okay. They ended up on his couch, a careful foot of space between them, talking in low voices about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up as an only child in a world of private schools and expectations. He told her about meeting Sarah in college, about Emma's birth, about the phone call that had shattered his world when a drunk driver ran a red light. I thought I'd never feel anything again, he admitted around 4 in the morning, both of them exhausted and wired at once. Thought I'd just be dad forever. That was enough. That had to be enough. And now? Isabella asked. Now I don't know. He looked at her. Now I'm terrified and kind of excited and completely unsure if we're being brave or stupid. Can it be both? Probably is. She laughed quietly. We're a mess, aren't we? Completely. I should actually go. She glanced at her phone, grimaced at the time. I have a meeting in 4 hours. You going to be okay? I don't know. She stood, and he walked her to the door. But I'm glad I came here, even if it was reckless and complicated and possibly the worst professional decision I've ever made. For what it's worth, Daniel said, I'm glad you came too. She kissed him one more time, quick and sweet, then stepped out into the pre-dawn cold. He watched her get into her Mercedes, watched her sit there for a moment before starting the engine. His phone buzzed just as her taillights disappeared down the street. Unknown number, I saw her car leave your house. We need to talk. Daniel stared at the message, ice flooding his veins. Someone had been watching. And everything they'd just started was about to get a lot more complicated. Daniel didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table watching the message glow on his phone screen until the words stopped making sense. By the time Emma woke up at 7, he'd already gone through half a pot of coffee and constructed a dozen different scenarios about who might have sent it, each one worse than the last. Daddy, you look sick. Emma stood in the doorway in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2. Just tired, baby. He forced himself to smile, to be present. Pancakes? With chocolate chips? Don't push your luck. She giggled, and the sound helped. Reminded him what actually mattered. He made pancakes, plain ones despite her protests, and watched her drown them in syrup while he checked his phone every 30 seconds. Nothing. No follow-up. Just that single message hanging there like a threat. The sender had to be someone from work. Someone who knew where he lived, who recognized Isabella's car. The company had over 300 employees at the Denver office alone, but only a handful would have any reason to know his address. HR had it on file. His direct supervisor. Maybe building security if they'd ever had to contact him about. His phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel's stomach dropped. Emma was still eating, chocolate syrup smile on her face, completely oblivious. He stepped into the living room, answered without saying anything. Daniel Hayes? Male voice. Unfamiliar. Who is this? Someone who saw something interesting last night. Or early this morning, I guess. Time gets fuzzy around 2 a.m., doesn't it? What do you want? Just to talk. See, I work nights at Vaughn Technologies. Security. And I happened to be doing a routine check of company vehicles when I noticed Ms. Vaughn's Mercedes wasn't in her usual spot. Tracked it through the GPS system we have installed in all executive cars. Standard protocol, you understand. Safety reasons. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's illegal. Is it? I'm not a lawyer, but I know what I saw on that tracker. Your address, Ms. Vaughn's car sitting in your driveway for over 2 hours, then leaving at 4:47 a.m. The man paused. That's interesting, don't you think? The CEO visiting a mid-level creative director's house in the middle of the night? Get to the point. The point is, I'm a reasonable person. I understand things happen. People make mistakes. And I'm willing to keep this information to myself for the right price. There it was. Daniel closed his eyes, felt the trap closing around him. You're blackmailing me.
I'm offering you a service. $10,000, and I delete the GPS logs, forget I ever saw anything. Nobody has to know about your late-night visitor. Ms. Vaughn's reputation stays intact. Your job stays secure. Everybody wins. I don't have $10,000. Then you'd better find it.
You've got 48 hours. The line went dead. Daniel stood there holding his phone, trying to breathe through the panic. $10,000. He had maybe $3,000 in savings, and that was supposed to be Emma's emergency fund. His mortgage ate most of his paycheck. Daycare took another chunk. There was no way. Daddy? Emma was standing in the doorway now, syrup on her chin. Who was that? Nobody, sweetheart. Just work stuff. You look scared. Kids saw too much. I'm fine. Go finish your breakfast. She didn't move. Is someone being mean to you? No, baby. I promise. Everything's okay. The lie felt heavy in his mouth. Go on. We need to get you ready for daycare. He got through the morning on autopilot. Dressed Emma, packed her lunch, drove her to the daycare center she'd been attending since she was 2. She kissed his cheek before running inside, and he sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes trying to figure out what the hell to do. He couldn't pay the blackmail, couldn't afford it, and even if he could, there was no guarantee this person wouldn't just ask for more. Blackmailers always did. But if he didn't pay, if this got out, his phone buzzed. Isabella. Can we talk? My office, 10 a.m. Daniel checked the time. 8:30. He was supposed to be at work anyway, had the Riverside pitch Monday, and nowhere near enough material prepared. But the thought of walking into that building, of facing Isabella knowing someone was watching them. I'll be there. The Vaughn Technologies building occupied an entire city block in downtown Denver, all glass and steel and aggressive modernity. Daniel had walked through those doors hundreds of times, but today it felt different, hostile, like everyone who glanced at him knew something. Security waved him through. The elevators were packed with Monday morning bodies, everyone avoiding eye contact, lost in their phones. He rode up to the executive floor, stepped out into the hushed hallway where carpet absorbed sound, and everything smelled like expensive cleaning products. Isabella's assistant looked up from her desk. Mr. Hayes? She's expecting you. The office was exactly what you'd expect from a billionaire CEO. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than his car. Art on the walls that he didn't understand but assumed was important. And Isabella, sitting behind a desk that could have doubled as a landing strip, looking nothing like the woman who'd cried on his couch 6 hours ago. Close the door, she said. He did. We have a problem. She stood, moved to the windows. Her suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. Her hair was pulled back. Everything about her screamed control, but he could see tension in her shoulders. I got a message this morning. Anonymous. Someone knows I was at your house. I got one too. Daniel pulled out his phone, showed her. Plus a call. Security guard, apparently. He's demanding $10,000 to keep quiet. Isabella read the message, her jaw tightening. Marcus Webb has to be. He's the overnight security supervisor, and he's been pushing for a promotion I denied last month. Wasn't qualified, but he didn't take it well. You know him? I know his file. And I know he's exactly the type to pull something like this. She handed the phone back. Don't pay him. I'll handle it. How? By firing him for misuse of company resources, breach of privacy, and attempted extortion. That'll just make him angry. He'll go public out of spite. Then I'll sue him into oblivion. Isabella's voice was cold. I have lawyers who specialize in making problems disappear. He threatens you, he threatens me, and I don't tolerate threats. Daniel shook his head. That's not going to work. You fire him, sue him, and it becomes a story. Billionaire CEO silences whistleblower. The media will eat it up, and they'll dig until they find out why. We'll both be finished. So what do you suggest? I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair. But scorched earth, isn't it? We need to be smart about this. Isabella turned from the window, really looked at him. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm used to being able to throw money and legal power at problems until they disappear. This is different. Yeah, it is. They stood there for a moment, the weight of the situation settling between them. I shouldn't have come to your house, Isabella said quietly. I put you at risk. Put your daughter at risk.
That was selfish. You were hurting. That's not an excuse. She crossed her arms. I'm the CEO. I should have known better. Should have kept my personal feelings separate from... Stop. Daniel moved closer. We both made choices last night. You don't get to take all the blame. I have more power, more responsibility. And I'm an adult who could have said no, who could have closed the door and told you to leave. But I didn't, because I wanted you there. He kept his voice low, aware they were in her office, aware of the glass walls even if the blinds were down. So we're in this together, which means we figure it out together. Isabella's expression softened slightly. I'm not used to together. Yeah, I'm getting that. A knock on the door made them both step apart. Isabella's assistant poked her head in. Miss Vaughn, your 10:30 is here. Tell them I need 5 more minutes. The door closed again. Isabella looked at Daniel. We need a plan, a real one. Because if this gets out, it's not just our jobs. It's your custody of Emma. Courts don't look kindly on parents involved in workplace scandals. The thought hadn't even occurred to him. Sarah's parents had never been thrilled about him raising Emma alone. They'd offered to take her multiple times, always phrased as helping but feeling like judgment. If they had ammunition, okay, he forced himself to focus. Okay, first step is we protect Emma. Whatever happens, she doesn't get dragged into this. Agreed. Second step is we address the workplace issue. Even if we deal with Webb, people are going to talk. Someone saw your car. Someone's going to put pieces together. Isabella nodded slowly. I can transfer you. Different department, different supervisor. It removes the direct conflict of interest. That looks like favoritism. It looks like good management. You've been overqualified for your current position for over a year. I've got an opening on the senior creative team. It's actually a promotion you've earned. She moved back to her desk, pulled up something on her computer. The team lead position reports directly to the VP of marketing instead of me. Better pay, better projects, and it removes any appearance of impropriety. People will still talk. Let them. As long as there's no ethics violation, they can talk all they want. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. I'll make it official today. The position's been open for 3 weeks, and HR has your performance reviews on file. You're the most qualified candidate. Daniel tried to think it through, find the holes. What about Webb? I'll have legal contact him. Quiet settlement. We pay him to leave the company with a non-disclosure agreement. He gets his money, we get our privacy, and he signs away any right to discuss what he saw. That's still paying blackmail. It's paying a severance package with conditions. Legal does it all the time. Isabella's jaw set. I hate it. But you're right. Fighting him publicly puts Emma at risk. So we do this the clean way. He leaves, we move forward, and nobody gets hurt. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than anything Daniel had come up with. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I'll get legal on it immediately. She made a note on her phone. In the meantime, we need to be careful. No contact outside of work. No messages that could be misconstrued. Until this settles, we keep everything professional. The words made sense, but they still stung. So last night was real, Isabella said firmly. But we can't do that again, not yet. Not until the situation's stable. How long? I don't know. She met his eyes. But I meant what I said. About you. About wanting this. So we wait. We're patient. And when it's safe, we figure out what this actually is. Daniel nodded. Emma asked me why I looked scared this morning. Isabella's expression cracked. What did you tell her? That everything was fine, but she knew I was lying. Kids always know. I'm sorry. I never wanted. I know. He checked his watch. I should go. Let you get to your meeting. Daniel? She stopped him before he reached the door. Thank you for not hating me for this mess. I could never hate you. You might, eventually, when you realize what being with me actually costs. Let me worry about that. He offered a small smile. You've got enough on your plate. He left before she could respond, rode the elevator back down to his floor. The creative department was already buzzing with Monday energy. People clustered around desks drinking coffee and complaining about weekend hangovers.
Daniel slipped into his cubicle, tried to focus on the Riverside campaign, but his mind kept spinning. Hayes. His supervisor, Marcus Chen, appeared at the partition. Conference room, 5 minutes. Daniel's stomach dropped. What's this about? HR wants to talk to you, that's all I know. The walk to the conference room felt like a death march. But when he got there, it wasn't a tribunal. Just Karen Reeves from HR, smiling pleasantly and holding a folder. Daniel, thanks for coming. This won't take long. She gestured for him to sit. I wanted to speak with you about a position that's opened up on the senior creative team. Team lead, your performance reviews are excellent, and we think you'd be a strong fit.
He blinked. Already? Ms. Vaughn flagged your file this morning. The position's been vacant for a few weeks, and she felt you were being underutilized in your current role. Karen slid the folder across. The details are here. 20% salary increase, better benefits, and you'd be working on our flagship accounts. It's a significant step up. Daniel opened the folder, skimmed the offer. It was real. Everything Isabella had promised. There's one change, Karen continued.
You'd be reporting to Michael Garrett, VP of Marketing. Different chain of command entirely from your current position. Is that acceptable? Yes, that's fine. Excellent. If you're interested, we can make it official by end of day. You'd start next Monday, which gives you this week to wrap up current projects and transition. It was happening too fast. But maybe that was good. Rip the Band-Aid off, make the change before anyone could question it. I'm interested, Daniel said. Perfect. I'll draw up the paperwork. Karen stood, shook his hand. Congratulations, Daniel. You've earned this. He walked out of the conference room in a daze. The promotion was real. The transfer was real. Isabella had moved fast, locked it down before anyone could connect dots or ask questions. It was smart. It also felt like she was pushing him away. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Saw the promotion announcement. Convenient timing. Offer still stands. $10,000, 48 hours. Daniel stared at the message. Webb. He had to be. But how did he know about the promotion already? It had been finalized 10 minutes ago. Unless he was monitoring HR systems. Or had someone feeding him information. Daniel called Isabella. She answered on the first ring. He knows about the promotion, Daniel said without preamble. Webb. He's still making threats. Legal's already drafting the settlement. I'll have them expedite it. What if he doesn't take it? He will. Isabella's voice was steel. Because if he doesn't, I'll bury him. I have enough resources to make his life extremely difficult, and he's smart enough to know it. You sound like the woman from the board meetings. That's who I have to be right now. A pause. I'll keep you updated. In the meantime, act normal. Do your job. Don't respond to any more messages from him. Isabella, I know, I hate this too, but it's temporary. We just need to get through it. The line went dead. Daniel spent the rest of the day trying to focus on work, but every notification made him flinch. Webb didn't message again, but the silence was almost worse, like waiting for a bomb to go off. He picked Emma up from daycare at 5:30. She was full of stories about finger painting and snack time and a boy named Marcus who ate glue. Daniel listened, asked questions, tried to be present, but part of his mind was always somewhere else, calculating risks and contingencies. They were halfway through dinner, mac and cheese, Emma's favorite, when his phone rang again. Legal department. Mr. Hayes, this is Jennifer Kwan from Vaughn Legal. I'm handling the matter Ms. Vaughn briefed me on this morning. Do you have a moment? Yeah, hold on. He stepped into the other room. What's happening? We contacted Mr. Webb with a severance offer. $50,000, conditional on signing an NDA and leaving the company immediately. He accepted. Relief flooded through him. He did? Just like that? He negotiated up from our initial offer of 30, but yes, he'll sign the papers tomorrow morning, receive payment by end of week, and be escorted off premises. The NDA is ironclad. If he discusses anything about Ms. Vaughn or yourself, he forfeits the entire sum and opens himself to legal action. So it's over. The immediate threat is resolved. However, I'd recommend maintaining professional distance from Ms. Vaughn for the foreseeable future, just as a precaution. Right, yeah, thank you. You're welcome. If anything else comes up, don't hesitate to contact me directly. She gave him her number, then hung up. Daniel stood there processing. It was over. Webb was handled. The promotion was legitimate. Everything should have felt better, but it didn't. Because Isabella was right. Being with her came with a cost, and they just paid the first installment. The week crawled by. Daniel transitioned out of his old role, spent time with the senior creative team getting up to speed. Michael Garrett was easy to work with, respected Daniel's experience, and didn't ask questions about why the promotion had happened so fast. By Friday, it felt almost normal. Almost. He hadn't spoken to Isabella since Monday. Hadn't seen her except in passing, and even then they'd both been careful to keep it professional. A nod in the hallway. A brief acknowledgement in a company-wide meeting. Nothing that could be misconstrued. It was the right thing to do. The smart thing. It was also killing him. Friday evening, Emma was at her grandparents' house for the weekend. They'd asked to take her months ago, and Daniel had agreed before any of this started. Now he had 48 hours alone in a house that felt too empty. He tried to work on campaign concepts, watched half a movie, ordered takeout, and ate it standing at the counter. By 9 o'clock, he was pacing, restless and irritated and tired of pretending he was fine. His phone rang. Isabella. Hey. Her voice was quiet. Are you alone? Yeah. Emma's at her grandparents'. Can I come over? Every rational thought said no. They'd agreed to distance, agreed to be careful, but he was so tired of being careful. Yes. She arrived 20 minutes later, dressed down in jeans and a sweater. No makeup, hair loose. She looked young and uncertain, and nothing like the CEO who commanded billion-dollar decisions. We shouldn't do this, she said as soon as he opened the door. I know. Webb's handled, but there could be others. Someone else who saw. Someone else who's watching. I know that too. Then why did you say yes? She was still standing on the porch, not coming in. Because I'm tired of pretending I don't want you here. Daniel stepped back, held the door open. And because we said we'd be honest, so I'm being honest. I want you here. Isabella came inside. They stood in the entryway for a long moment, neither quite knowing what to do now that they'd crossed this line again. We can't keep doing this, she said finally. Sneaking around, lying, it's not fair to either of us. What are you saying? I'm saying we either commit to this, actually commit, consequences and all, or we end it now before it gets messier. She met his eyes. And I don't want to end it. But I also won't ask you to risk everything for something I'm not sure I know how to do. Do what? Be someone's girlfriend, partner, whatever this is. Isabella's hands twisted together. I don't know how to be vulnerable. How to let someone in. I've spent my entire adult life building walls, and now you're asking me to tear them down, and I don't know if I can. Daniel moved closer. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to try. What if I fail? Then we figure it out. Together, like you said. He took her hand. Look, I'm scared too. I haven't done this since Sarah. Haven't let anyone close because it hurt too much when I lost her. But you were right the other night. I can't keep shutting down. Can't keep hiding behind being dad like that's all I am. You're a good father. I try to be, but Emma deserves a dad who's actually living, not just surviving, and maybe that means taking risks. Maybe it means letting someone in who scares the hell out of me because she's brilliant and intense. And so far out of my league, it's not even funny. Isabella laughed, but it was shaky. You think I'm out of your league? You're a billionaire. I make $65,000 a year. Money doesn't mean anything. It means something. Not to me. Not about this. She squeezed his hand. You think I care about bank accounts? About status? I've had men with more money than sense throw themselves at me for years, and none of them ever looked at me the way you do. Like I'm a person, not a prize. You are a person. Complicated and frustrating and kind of amazing. Kind of? I'm hedging my bets. She kissed him, and this time there was no panic, no desperation, just quiet certainty that this was what they both wanted, complications be damned. When they broke apart, Isabella rested her forehead against his. If we do this, really do this, we have to be smart. No more late-night visits that people can see. No public displays. We keep it private until we're ready to handle the fallout. How long? I don't know. A few months? Long enough that the promotion doesn't look suspicious.
Long enough that we know this is real and worth fighting for. Daniel nodded. And Emma? When do we tell her? Not yet. Not until we're sure. Isabella pulled back slightly. I meant what I said. She comes first. If she's not comfortable with me, if this doesn't work for her, then it doesn't work. Period. That's a lot of pressure. I know, but she's your daughter, your priority. And if I'm going to be part of your life, I need to be part of hers too. The right way. Not rushed, not forced. When it's time. They ended up on the couch again, talking until midnight about logistics and boundaries and all the practical details that made this possible. They'd see each other outside of work, but carefully. Never at his house when Emma was home. Never anywhere public where they might be recognized. Isabella's apartment mostly. Quiet dinners, movies. Normal things that felt utterly abnormal given the circumstances. This is insane, Daniel said at some point, her head on his shoulder. We're adults having to sneak around like teenagers. Welcome to dating a public figure. Is that what we're doing? Dating? I think so, unless you have a better word for it. No, dating works. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Just feels surreal. Tell me about it. They fell quiet. Isabella's breathing evened out, and for a moment Daniel thought she'd fallen asleep. But then she spoke, voice small. Thank you for giving me a chance, even though I've made everything complicated. You didn't make it complicated. It just is. But that's okay. I can handle complicated. Can you? Guess we'll find out. She left around 1, after checking twice that the street was empty. Daniel watched her drive away, then locked the door and stood in his quiet house feeling more awake than he had in years. His phone buzzed one last time before he went to bed. Isabella. I know we said careful, but I needed tonight. Needed you. Thank you for letting me in. Daniel. Anytime. I mean it. Isabella. I'm going to hold you to that. He smiled at the screen, then set the phone down and went upstairs. For the first time since this all started, he felt like maybe, just maybe, they could actually pull this off. But in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered that they'd only handled one threat, and in a company of 300 people with a CEO. Everyone watched. There would always be others. The voice belonged to someone Daniel had worked with for 2 years but never really noticed. Rachel Kim from accounting, standing in the break room on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after the promotion, holding a coffee cup and wearing an expression that said she knew something. Congratulations on the new position, she said, too casual. Pretty quick turnaround from the posting to your start date. Daniel poured his own coffee, kept his tone neutral. I was lucky. Right place, right time. Must be nice having connections. Rachel smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I mean, not everyone gets a personal meeting with Ms. Vaughn before a promotion. But I guess when you're already close with the CEO, these things happen faster. His hand tightened on the cup. I earned that position. I'm sure you did. She set her mug in the sink. Just interesting timing, that's all. You weren't even on anyone's radar for senior creative, and then suddenly, boom, promoted and transferred out of her direct supervision. Makes people wonder. Wonder what? Rachel shrugged. Nothing, just office talk. You know how people are. She headed for the door, paused. Anyway, congrats again. I'm sure it's all completely above board. She left before he could respond. Daniel stood there gripping his coffee, feeling the walls closing in again. It started small after that. Looks that lasted too long. Conversations that stopped when he entered a room. Nothing overt, nothing he could point to and say definitively that people were talking. But they were. He could feel it. Michael Garrett called him into his office Thursday afternoon. The VP of marketing was in his mid-40s, sharp and direct, and he'd been nothing but supportive since Daniel joined the team, but today his expression was careful. Close the door, Michael said. Daniel did, sat down across from him. I'm going to be blunt because I think you deserve that, Michael started. There's talk about you and Ms. Vaughn, and before you say anything, I don't care if it's true or not. That's your business. What I care about is whether it affects your work or creates liability for this department. It doesn't. Good. Because your work's been solid. The Riverside campaign you pitched last week was exactly what the client wanted, and the feedback's been excellent. You've integrated with the team well.
I have zero complaints about your performance. Daniel waited for the other shoe to drop. But, Michael continued, I need you to understand the position you're in. Fair or not, people are scrutinizing everything you do. Every project you lead, every success you have, someone's going to question whether you earned it or whether you had help from the top. That's reality. I know. So here's what I need from you. I need your work to be beyond reproach. I need you to be twice as good as everyone else on this team, not because it's fair, but because it's necessary. Can you do that? Yes. Michael studied him. I believe you can. And for what it's worth, I think the rumors are bullshit. I've seen your portfolio. I've seen what you're capable of. You earned this spot, but you're going to have to keep earning it over and over until people get bored and find something else to talk about. I understand. Good. Michael's expression softened slightly. And Hayes, whatever is or isn't happening in your personal life, be careful. Ms. Vaughn's got armor. You don't. If this blows up, you're the one who'll take the hit. Daniel left the office feeling like he'd been punched in the stomach. Not because Michael was wrong, but because he was right. Isabella had money, lawyers, power. If everything fell apart, she'd survive. He might not. He texted her from his desk. We need to talk. Tonight. Her response came 2 hours later. My place. 8 p.m. Isabella's apartment was in one of those buildings where doormen wore uniforms and the elevator required a keycard. Daniel had only been there twice before, always after dark, always careful. The penthouse took up the entire top floor, all windows and white furniture and art that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. She was waiting when he arrived, barefoot in yoga pants and an oversized sweater. No makeup, hair pulled back. She looked tired. People are talking, Daniel said without preamble. At work, about us. I know. Isabella moved to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of wine. HR flagged it for me this morning. Nothing actionable yet, but the rumors are spreading. Rachel Kim basically accused me of sleeping my way into the promotion. Did she use those words? She didn't have to. The implication was clear. He took the wine glass she offered, didn't drink. Michael pulled me aside, told me I need to be twice as good as everyone else to shut people up. He's right. Isabella leaned against the counter. I hate it, but he's right. This is what I warned you about, the cost of being with me. I'm not complaining. I'm just... Daniel set the glass down. I need to know this is worth it, that we're not just delaying the inevitable. What's the inevitable? This falling apart. You realizing I'm not worth the headache. Me losing my job anyway because the rumors won't stop. Emma getting hurt because I made selfish choices. Isabella crossed the space between them, took his face in her hands. Look at me. Do I look like I'm going anywhere? I don't know. Do you? No? She said it fierce and certain. I'm not that person. I don't quit when things get hard, and I don't abandon people I care about because other people have opinions. But listen to me. Her thumbs brushed his cheekbones. I have spent my entire adult life being told what I should do, who I should be, who I should want, and I'm done with that. I want you. Not because it's easy or convenient, but because you're the first real thing I've had in years. So no, I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you, unless you actually want to leave. I don't want to leave. Then we fight. We prove the doubters wrong. We make this work because the alternative is going back to being alone, and I'm not doing that. Not anymore. He kissed her, hard and desperate, and she kissed him back with the same intensity. They ended up on her ridiculously expensive couch, wine forgotten, months of tension and fear and wanting finally spilling over. Later, lying tangled together in sheets that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage, Daniel stared at the ceiling and tried to quiet the panic still churning in his chest. What are you thinking? Isabella asked, tracing patterns on his shoulder. That this is the most complicated thing I've ever done, and I've raised a 4-year-old alone. She laughed quietly. Fair comparison. I'm serious. With Emma, I know the rules. I know what I'm supposed to do. Keep her safe, fed, happy. Make sure she knows she's loved. But this, I don't know the rules. Don't know how to navigate dating my boss while everyone watches and judges and waits for us to fail. You're not dating your boss anymore. Different chain of command, remember? Technically, but everyone knows where the promotion came from. They know you flagged my file. And they're going to keep knowing, keep talking until we give them something else to focus on.
Isabella was quiet for a moment. What if we went public? Daniel's head whipped toward her. What? Not now, but eventually. What if instead of hiding, we just owned it? Acknowledged we're together, dealt with the fallout head on instead of letting it build in the shadows? That's insane. Is it? Think about it. Right now, the mystery is what's feeding the rumors.
People are speculating, making it worse than it probably is. But if we just came out and said, yes, we're dating, we followed all the proper protocols, what's the story? CEO dates employee, except he's not her employee anymore. Where's the scandal? In the fact that I was her employee when this started. In the fact that my promotion looks suspicious no matter how we spin it. Your promotion was earned. Your performance reviews prove that. HR can verify the position was already open before we were involved. The timeline's clean. Daniel sat up, ran both hands through his hair. You're thinking about this like a business problem. Like if we just manage the optics right, everything will be fine. But it's not that simple. There are people who want to see you fail, who resent your success, your age, your gender. They'll use me as ammunition.
Let them try. Isabella, I mean it. She sat up too, sheet wrapped around her. Let them try. I've been dealing with people undermining me since I took over this company. Men who thought a 26-year-old woman had no business running a tech empire. Investors who tried to force me out. Competitors who've spent 4 years waiting for me to screw up. And I'm still here, still successful, still winning. They can come at me about my personal life all they want. I won't break. But I might. The admission came out quieter than he intended. I'm not like you. I don't have your armor, your resources. I'm just some guy trying to raise his kid and do good work. And if this gets ugly, if the media gets involved, if it becomes a thing, I don't know if I can handle that. Isabella's expression softened. Then we don't go public. Not until you're ready. Maybe not ever, if that's what you need. You'd be okay with that? Hiding indefinitely? I'd rather hide with you than be public with anyone else. She reached for his hand. I meant what I said before. This is your call. Your life, your daughter. I'm not going to push you into something you're not comfortable with. They sat in silence, hands linked, both wrestling with impossible choices. I need to think about it, Daniel said finally. Need to figure out what's right for Emma, for me, for us. Take all the time you need. But time, as it turned out, wasn't something they had. The email arrived Friday morning. Anonymous, sent to the company-wide ethics reporting system, which meant HR was legally obligated to investigate. Jennifer Kwan from legal called Daniel at 9:30. We have a situation. Can you come to my office? His stomach dropped. What kind of situation? The kind we need to discuss in person. Bring your performance reviews and any documentation of your work on recent projects. Isabella was already there when he arrived, sitting across from Jennifer with her lawyer, a severe woman named Patricia Chen, who'd flown in from San Francisco that morning. The conference room felt like a tribunal. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming, Jennifer gestured to a chair. I'll get straight to it. We received a complaint this morning alleging favoritism and ethical violations in your promotion to senior creative team lead. The complainant claims Ms. Vaughn promoted you based on a personal relationship rather than merit, and that this constitutes misuse of company resources and creates a hostile work environment. Daniel's mouth went dry. That's not true. I'd like to believe that, but we have to investigate. It's protocol. Jennifer opened a folder. The complaint includes some concerning details. Knowledge of Ms. Vaughn's vehicle being at your residence. Claims that you've been seen together outside of work. Allegations that the promotion was rushed and that other qualified candidates weren't considered. Other candidates were considered, Isabella said, voice sharp. HR has documentation of the entire selection process. Daniel's performance reviews are exemplary. The position was already vacant and budgeted for. This is a baseless accusation from someone with an agenda. Nevertheless, we have to take it seriously. Patricia Chen spoke for the first time, her tone measured. The optics are problematic. Ms. Vaughn did flag Mr. Hayes' file personally. The promotion was expedited. And if there is a personal relationship, that changes the context significantly. The room went silent.
There is, Daniel heard himself say. A relationship, personal. But it started after the promotion was finalized, and the promotion was legitimate. I earned it. Jennifer made a note. Patricia's expression didn't change. Isabella's hand tightened on the armrest of her chair. Can you prove when the relationship started? Patricia asked. No, not definitively. Daniel kept his voice steady. But the timeline's in the records. HR contacted me about the position on a Monday. I accepted that afternoon. The relationship didn't become physical until that weekend. Physical relationship implies there was an emotional component before that, Patricia said. There were feelings, on both sides. But we didn't act on them until after the professional conflict was resolved. That's a fine line, Mr. Hayes. It's the truth. Jennifer leaned forward. Here's the problem. Even if everything you're saying is accurate, the appearance of impropriety is enough to cause issues. The complainant is arguing that Ms. Vaughn's judgment was compromised by personal feelings, conscious or not. That your promotion was influenced by attraction rather than merit. And perception matters, especially in a company this size. So what are you saying? Isabella's voice was cold. That Daniel should be demoted? That I should be penalized for having a personal life? I'm saying we need to handle this carefully. Jennifer looked between them. The company has policies about relationships between supervisors and subordinates for exactly this reason. You technically followed those policies by transferring Mr. Hayes out of your direct supervision. But the timing is questionable enough that it opens us up to liability. What kind of liability? Daniel asked. Discrimination claims. Other employees arguing they were passed over unfairly. Hostile work environment complaints from people who feel uncomfortable with the power dynamic. It's a mess. Patricia spoke up again. My recommendation is suspension pending investigation, both of you. It removes the immediate conflict while we conduct a thorough review of the promotion process, interview other candidates, and determine whether any actual misconduct occurred. Absolutely not. Isabella stood. I'm not being suspended from my own company because someone made an anonymous complaint. That sets a precedent I won't allow. Then you're opening the company to a lawsuit. Let them sue. I have documentation. I have performance reviews. I have a clean timeline. What I won't do is let anonymous cowards dictate how I run this business or who I'm allowed to have in my personal life. Isabella. Daniel stood too. Maybe we should consider... No. She turned to him. We've done nothing wrong. You earned that promotion. The ethics are clean, and I'm not letting them win by making us act like we have something to hide. But if it protects the company doesn't need protection from us being together. It needs protection from people who weaponize policy to tear down successful women. Isabella's jaw was set. I've seen this before. When I first took over, there were complaints about my leadership style, my decision-making, my appearance in board meetings, all designed to undermine my authority, and I fought back every single time. I'm not stopping now. Patricia stood. Ms. Vaughn, as your attorney, I strongly advise reconsidering. The optics, I don't care about optics. I care about doing the right thing. Then do the right thing for Mr. Hayes. Patricia's voice sharpened. Because if this goes public, if we end up in litigation, he's the one who will be destroyed. Not you. Him. His reputation, his career, his custody of his daughter. All of it will be scrutinized and picked apart. Are you prepared to put him through that? Isabella's face went pale. She looked at Daniel, and he saw the moment reality crash through her certainty. No, she said quietly. I'm not. Then we need a different solution. Jennifer pulled out another folder. Here's what I propose. Mr. Hayes, you continue in your current role, but we bring in an independent consultant to review the promotion decision. They interview other candidates, assess your qualifications objectively, and provide a report that either validates the decision or recommends corrective action. It gives us documentation to defend against any claims while allowing business to continue normally. And if the report says the promotion wasn't justified, Daniel asked, then we revisit. But I've looked at your file, Mr. Hayes. Your work is strong. I don't think that's the outcome we'll see. What about the relationship? Isabella's voice was barely audible. Are we supposed to end it? That's your choice. But I'd recommend discretion. No public displays. No situations that could be misconstrued. Keep your personal and professional lives separate as much as possible. We're already doing that.
Then keep doing it, and hope the investigation wraps quickly. They left the conference room separately. Daniel went back to his desk, tried to focus on work, failed completely. His phone buzzed an hour later. Isabella. I'm sorry. I should have handled that better. Should have listened when you said going public was a bad idea. Daniel. It's not your fault. Someone was going to complain eventually. Isabella. But I made it worse.
My lawyer's right. If this escalates, you're the one who'll suffer. And I can't let that happen. Daniel. So what are we doing? The three dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. Isabella. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to protect you without losing you, and I don't think I can do both. Daniel stared at the message, feeling the ground shift beneath him. This was the moment, the choice. Stay and fight and risk everything, or walk away and preserve what little stability he had left. He thought about Emma, about custody battles and tabloid coverage, and his daughter asking why people were saying mean things about her dad. He thought about his career, about working under suspicion, about every success being questioned and diminished. But he also thought about Isabella's hand in his, about the way she looked at him like he mattered, about finally feeling something after years of numbness. Daniel. We don't have to decide right now. Let's see what the investigation finds. Go from there. Isabella. And if it goes badly? Daniel. Then we deal with it together, like we said. Isabella. You're too good for this mess. Daniel. Probably, but I'm here anyway. The investigation took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of interviews and documentation reviews and careful distance between them. Daniel threw himself into work, produced campaigns that were beyond anything he'd done before. Partly because Michael had been right about needing to be twice as good, partly because it was the only thing he could control. The consultant, a woman named Dr. Sarah Mitchell from an HR ethics firm, interviewed him twice, asked detailed questions about his qualifications, his work history, his relationship with Isabella. Daniel answered honestly, provided documentation, and tried not to think about how much was riding on her assessment. He saw Isabella exactly once during those weeks. A company event, required attendance, where they stood on opposite sides of the room and pretended they were strangers. She gave a speech about quarterly results. He applauded with everyone else. And when she glanced his way for half a second, the longing in her expression nearly broke him. Doctor. Mitchell's report came back on a Tuesday. Jennifer Kwan called him in, and this time Isabella wasn't there. The investigation's concluded, Jennifer said, sliding a bound document across the table. Dr. Mitchell found no evidence of impropriety or favoritism in your promotion. Your qualifications were objectively superior to other candidates. The timeline, while compressed, was within normal parameters for senior positions. And multiple department heads verified that you were already being considered for advancement before Ms. Vaughn flagged your file. Relief flooded through him. So I'm cleared? You're cleared. The promotion stands, and the complaint has been dismissed as unfounded. Jennifer paused. However, Dr. Mitchell did note that the appearance of a relationship created unnecessary complications. She's recommended that the company update its relationship disclosure policies to prevent similar situations in the future. Meaning? Meaning that while you and Ms. Vaughn didn't violate any existing policies, the company is going to require disclosure of personal relationships going forward, not to prohibit them, but to manage potential conflicts before they become problems. Daniel nodded slowly. That makes sense. Does it? Because you look like someone who just won a battle but lost a war. I'm just tired. I'm sure you are. Jennifer's expression softened. For what it's worth, I think you got a raw deal. You're good at your job. You deserve that promotion, and what you do in your personal life shouldn't have been anyone's business. But it is. When you're involved with someone like Isabella. Yeah, it is. She stood. You're free to go. And Hayes, whatever you decide to do about your relationship with Ms. Vaughn, be careful. People are still watching. He left legal and went straight to his desk, pulled out his phone, started typing a message to Isabella, then deleted it, started again, deleted again. His phone rang, her name on the screen. Hey, he answered. I heard, Jennifer called me. Isabella's voice was strained. You're cleared? Yeah, that's good. That's what we needed. Is it? Silence. Then quietly, I don't know anymore. Daniel, I've been thinking about what my lawyer said, about what this is costing you, and I don't know if I can keep asking you to pay that price. His chest tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe everyone's right. Maybe this is too complicated, too risky. Maybe the smart thing would be to walk away before it gets worse. Is that what you want? It doesn't matter what I want. It matters what's right for you, for Emma. Don't do that. Daniel kept his voice low, aware of people nearby. Don't make this decision for me. If you want out, say it, but don't hide behind protecting me. I'm not hiding. I'm being realistic. No, you're scared. And I get it. This has been awful, but we're through the worst of it. The investigation's done. I'm cleared. We can breathe. Until the next complaint, the next rumor, the next person who decides we're a problem. Isabella's voice cracked. I can't keep putting you through this. Can't keep watching you suffer because of me. Then let me decide what I can handle. You already have, by staying this long, by defending me when you should have protected yourself. She took a shaky breath. You're a good man, Daniel, better than I deserve, and that's exactly why I need to let you go. The words hit like a punch. Isabella, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but this is the right thing for both of us. The line went dead. Daniel sat at his desk, phone in hand, feeling everything crack apart. Around him, the office hummed with normal activity. People working, talking, laughing, completely unaware that his world had just imploded. He made it through the rest of the day on autopilot, attended meetings, responded to emails, acted like a person whose heart wasn't currently in pieces. And when 5 o'clock finally came, he drove to Emma's daycare, picked up his daughter, and held her a little tighter than usual. Daddy, you're squishing me, she protested. Sorry, baby. He loosened his grip. Just missed you today. I missed you too. Can we get pizza? Yeah, pizza sounds good. They ate dinner, played with her toys, read 3 bedtime stories instead of the usual one. And when Emma finally fell asleep, Daniel went downstairs and let himself break. He didn't call Isabella, didn't text. What was the point? She'd made her choice. Maybe it was even the right one. But right or wrong, it hurt like hell. 2 months passed like walking through fog. Daniel went to work, came home, took care of Emma, and tried not to think about the fact that his chest felt hollow. He saw Isabella in meetings sometimes, unavoidable in a company that size, and they were professionally cordial in a way that made his teeth ache. She'd ask about project timelines. He'd provide updates. They'd both pretend they hadn't once known what the other person looked like at 3 a.m. with all their defenses down. Emma noticed something was wrong but couldn't articulate what. She asked fewer questions, watched him more carefully, brought him her favorite stuffed animals when he looked particularly tired. 4-year-olds had a radar for sadness that adults had learned to ignore in themselves. Are you sick, Daddy? She asked one evening while they were coloring at the kitchen table. No, baby, I'm fine. You don't smile anymore. Daniel set down his crayon, pulled her into his lap. I smile. See? He forced one that felt like it might crack his face. She touched his cheek, studying him with those 2 perceptive eyes. That's a pretend smile. You used to do real ones. I'm just tired from work, but I'm okay. Promise. She didn't look convinced, but she was 4, so she accepted it and went back to coloring her princess purple instead of the pink the picture suggested. Daniel watched her, thought about all the ways he was failing at being the stable, present father she deserved, and felt the guilt settle deeper. His phone buzzed. Michael Garrett. My office. When you have a minute. Daniel checked the time. Almost 6. Emma's daycare closed at 6:30, which meant he had maybe 20 minutes before he had to leave. He texted back a quick acknowledgement, settled Emma in front of a cartoon on his phone, and headed upstairs. Michael's office door was open. The VP was at his desk, sleeves rolled up, looking at something on his computer with the kind of focus that suggested he'd be there until midnight. You wanted to see me? Michael glanced up. Yeah, close the door. Daniel did, feeling the familiar tension that came with closed-door meetings these days. Relax, it's not bad. Michael gestured to a chair. I wanted to talk to you about the Morrison account. They saw your work on Riverside and specifically requested you for their rebrand campaign. They did? They did. It's a big contract, 7 figures, high visibility, and they want you leading creative. Michael leaned back. It's the kind of project that makes careers. Interested? Of course, yeah. Good. Because here's the thing, this validates everything I told you 2 months ago. Your work is speaking for itself. The rumors, the investigation, all of that, it's background noise now. You're proving you belong here based purely on merit. Daniel nodded, trying to feel the win, trying not to focus on the fact that the one person he wanted to tell about this was the one person he couldn't talk to. There's one complication, Michael continued. Morrison wants to meet the full team before signing. That includes Ms. Vaughn. Standard protocol for contracts this size. CEO has to be in the room to show company commitment. When? Friday. Lunch meeting at their headquarters. You'll present the initial concepts, I'll handle the business terms, and Ms. Vaughn will do the relationship management piece. Michael watched him carefully. Is that going to be a problem? No, we're professionals. I know you are, but I also know it's been awkward since the investigation, and I need this meeting to go smoothly. Morrison's a skeptical client. They've been burned by agencies before. Any hint of internal dysfunction, and they'll walk. I can handle it. I believe you. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. Michael's expression softened slightly. And Hayes, for what it's worth, you're doing good work. Really good. Whatever personal stuff you're dealing with, it's not showing in your output. Thanks. Don't thank me, just keep it up. But Daniel left the office, collected Emma, and drove home trying to figure out how he was going to sit across a conference table from Isabella and act like his entire body didn't remember what it felt like to hold her. 2 months of careful distance, 2 months of pretending she was just another executive, and now he had to sit in a room with her for 3 hours and sell a campaign while acting completely unaffected. He made it to Thursday before he broke and texted her. Daniel, Morrison meeting tomorrow. Michael says they specifically asked for me. The response took 20 minutes. Isabella, I know. Congratulations. You earned it. Daniel, will it be weird, us in the same room that long? Isabella, it'll be professional, like it's been. Daniel, right, professional. Another long pause. Isabella, how have you been? Daniel, fine, you? Isabella, busy. The company's expanding into European markets. Lots of late nights. Daniel, sounds like you. Isabella, I heard Emma asked about me at the company picnic last month. Daniel's chest tightened. Emma had seen Isabella across the park and asked why Daddy's friend wasn't coming to say hello. He'd made some excuse about Ms. Vaughn being busy with important work things, and Emma had accepted it but looked disappointed. Daniel, she asks about a lot of people. She's friendly. Isabella, she's sweet, like her dad. Daniel, Isabella. Isabella, I should go. See you tomorrow at the meeting. She was offline before he could respond. Friday arrived too fast. Daniel spent an extra 10 minutes on his appearance that morning, then felt ridiculous about it. He was dressing for a client meeting, not for her, except he was lying to himself and knew it. Morrison's headquarters was in Boulder, a 40-minute drive from Denver. Michael picked him up at 9, company car, driver included, and they spent the ride reviewing strategy. Isabella was meeting them there, coming straight from another appointment. The Morrison building was all reclaimed wood and environmental consciousness, the kind of place that announced its values through architecture. They were led to a conference room with windows overlooking the Flatirons, and Daniel was setting up his presentation materials when Isabella walked in. She wore navy, professional but not severe, her hair down in a way he'd only seen a handful of times. She looked thinner than she had 2 months ago, tired around the eyes despite perfect makeup. Michael, Daniel. She shook hands with both of them, and when her fingers touched his, something electric shot up his arm. Her eyes met his for half a second, just long enough for him to see she'd felt it too. Then she turned to greet the Morrison executives filing in behind her. The meeting started smoothly. Daniel presented the initial concepts, walked them through the strategy, answered questions about market positioning and brand differentiation. Morrison's CEO, a woman named Catherine Pierce, seemed impressed, but cautious. I like the direction, Catherine said, studying the mock-ups. But I need to know the team behind it is solid. We've worked with agencies that presented beautifully and delivered chaos. How do I know you're different?
Our track record speaks for itself, Isabella said smoothly. Vaughn Technologies has a 97% client retention rate. We don't just deliver campaigns, we build long-term partnerships. That's the corporate line. I want to know about the people in this room. Catherine looked between them. You three going to work well together? Because I've sat in enough meetings to spot tension, and there's something here I can't quite name. Daniel's stomach dropped. Michael's expression stayed neutral. Isabella didn't miss a beat. Daniel Hayes is one of the most talented creative directors I've worked with, she said, and her voice had that CEO certainty that brooked no argument. I've watched him take concepts from good to exceptional through sheer creativity and persistence. Michael Garrett is a strategic thinker who understands both the creative and business sides of campaigns, and I trust both of them implicitly. Whatever tension you're sensing isn't professional. It's the healthy debate that happens when talented people push each other to do better work. Catherine studied Isabella, then Daniel, then nodded slowly. Fair enough. I appreciate honesty. The rest of the meeting went better. They talked numbers, timelines, deliverables. By the time Morrison's team excused themselves for a private discussion, Daniel felt cautiously optimistic. That went well, Michael said once they were alone. Good save on the tension question, Ms. Vaughn. It was the truth. Isabella gathered her materials. Daniel is talented, that's not in question. Still, thank you for the vote of confidence. Michael checked his phone. I need to make a call before they come back. Excuse me. He left the conference room and suddenly it was just Daniel and Isabella in a space that felt too small and too big at the same time. You've lost weight, Daniel said before he could stop himself. I've been busy. Too busy to eat? Too busy for a lot of things. She wouldn't look at him, kept her eyes on the papers she was organizing. You look good. Tired, but good. Emma's been waking up with nightmares. Some nights I don't sleep much. Is she okay? She's 4. Nightmares are normal. She asks about you sometimes. Isabella's hands stilled. What do you tell her? That you're busy with work, that we don't see each other as much because I'm on a different team now. He moved closer, lowered his voice. She asked if you were mad at me, if that's why you don't come over anymore. What did you say? I said no, that grown-ups sometimes just get busy, but I don't think she believed me. I'm sorry. Isabella finally looked at him, and the pain in her expression was so raw it hurt to see. I never wanted her to feel like I abandoned her. Or you. Then why did you? Because it was the right thing to do. Because I couldn't keep putting you in that position, couldn't keep watching you suffer because of me. That was my choice to make. And I made it for you, because you wouldn't. Because you're too good, too loyal, too willing to sacrifice yourself for people you care about. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. I couldn't let you destroy yourself for me, Daniel. I couldn't live with that. So instead you made the decision to destroy us both? That's better? At least you're safe now. At least Emma's safe. At least your career isn't constantly under scrutiny. You think I care about that more than I care about you? The door opened. Michael walked back in and they both stepped apart like they'd been burned. Morrison's ready to talk, Michael said, either not noticing or politely ignoring the tension. Let's close this deal. Morrison signed. 3-year contract, full creative control, the kind of win that would normally have Daniel celebrating. Instead, he sat through the handshakes and congratulations feeling numb. The drive back to Denver was quiet. Michael talked on his phone, handling other business. Daniel stared out the window at mountains he barely saw. And when they pulled up to the office, he realized he had nowhere he actually wanted to be. You coming in? Michael asked. I need to pick up Emma from daycare. It's only 2. I know, I'm taking the afternoon off. Daniel climbed out of the car. Good work today. You too. Enjoy your weekend. Daniel drove to the daycare, checked Emma out early, and took her to the park because he needed open space and the sound of her laughing. She played on the swings while he sat on a bench and tried to figure out how he'd ended up here. Successful at work, miserable everywhere else. His phone buzzed. Unknown number, but he answered anyway. Mr. Hayes? This is Catherine Pierce from Morrison. Daniel straightened. Ms. Pierce, is everything okay with the contract? Everything's fine. Better than fine. I'm calling because I wanted you to know why we ultimately decided to sign. I appreciate that. It was what Ms. Vaughn said about you, about trusting you implicitly. Catherine paused. I've been in business 30 years, Mr. Hayes, and I can tell when someone's just delivering talking points versus when they actually mean it. She meant it.
Whatever history is there between you two, whatever that tension was, it's built on genuine respect. That kind of trust is rare. It's what made me comfortable putting my company's rebrand in your hands. Daniel's throat was tight. Thank you for telling me that. Don't thank me. Just do good work. And maybe tell Ms. Vaughn she's got good instincts about people. She clearly saw something in you worth fighting for. The call ended. Daniel sat there holding his phone, watching Emma climb the slide, and felt something shift in his chest. Isabella had defended him, had put her credibility on the line to vouch for his talent. Even after she'd walked away, even after she'd decided protecting him meant leaving him, she'd still fought for him when it mattered. That had to mean something. He waited until Emma was asleep that night before he texted. Daniel, Catherine Pierce called. Said you're the reason Morrison signed. Said you trusted me implicitly. Isabella, I do. That wasn't a performance. Daniel, then why does it feel like you don't trust me to make my own decisions? About us? Isabella, that's different. Daniel, how? Isabella, because your work is objectively excellent. Anyone can see that. But us, that's subjective. And I saw what it was costing you. I couldn't watch that anymore. Daniel, so you decided for both of us that the cost was too high. Isabella, yes. Daniel, what if I disagree? Isabella, then you're not thinking clearly. You're emotional. Daniel, of course I'm emotional. I fell in love with you. Emotion kind of comes with that territory. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. Isabella, don't say that. Daniel, why not? It's true. I love you, have for months. And walking away didn't change that, just made it worse. Isabella, Daniel, please. Daniel, please, what? Please stop making this harder? Please pretend I'm fine without you? I can't do that. I tried. For 2 months, I tried to just move on and be professional and act like you were nothing more than my CEO, and I can't. Isabella, you have to, for Emma, for your career. Daniel, Emma asks about you constantly, and my career is fine, better than fine. I just landed the biggest contract of my life. So what exactly am I protecting by staying away from you? No response. Daniel stared at his phone, then made a decision that was probably stupid but felt necessary. He called her. She answered on the 5th ring. Daniel, I need you to be honest with me. Really honest. Do you still want this? Want us? Silence. Then quietly, it doesn't matter what I want. It's the only thing that matters, because if you don't want me anymore, if you realize these 2 months that you're better off without the complication, then say it. I'll walk away. I'll leave you alone. But if you do still want this, of course I still want this. Her voice cracked. Do you have any idea how hard it's been, seeing you in meetings, watching you be brilliant and not being able to say anything? I miss you. I miss Emma. I miss your ridiculous house with toys everywhere and your terrible coffee and the way you look at me like I'm not just a balance sheet in heels. Then why are we doing this? Why are we making ourselves miserable? Because I'm scared. The admission came out raw. I'm scared that if we try again, it'll go wrong. That the scrutiny will be worse, the pressure will break us, and you'll end up hating me for ruining your life. I'd rather lose you now while you still think well of me than watch you grow to resent me later. Daniel closed his eyes. I could never resent you. You say that now. I say it because it's true. Isabella, listen to me. These 2 months have been the worst I've had since Sarah died. Not because work was hard or people were talking. Because I didn't have you. Because I went from having someone who understood me to having no one. And if that's what protecting myself looks like, I don't want it. What do you want? You. Emma wants you. We both want you back in our lives, complications and all. Emma said that? She asks about you every day. Wants to know when you're coming over. When she can show you her new drawings. She's 4 and she misses you. What does that tell you? Isabella was crying. He could hear it in her breathing. I don't want to hurt her. Then stop hurting her by staying away. Stop hurting both of us. What if it falls apart? What if it doesn't? Daniel's voice gentled. What if we're actually good together when we stop trying to protect ourselves from worst-case scenarios? What if we just try, for real this time, without hiding or apologizing or letting other people's opinions dictate our choices? That's terrifying. Yeah, it is. But you know what's more terrifying? Spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been if we'd just been brave enough to find out. More silence. Then, Morrison signed because I told them the truth, that I trust you, that you're talented and dedicated and the kind of person who makes everything around him better. And I meant every word. I know you did. But I didn't tell them the rest, that you're also kind and patient and better with my emotional mess than I probably deserve, that you make me want to be braver than I am, that walking away from you was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I've buried a parent and taken over a billion-dollar company. Daniel's chest ached. Isabella, I'm saying I want to try again. If you'll have me. If you can forgive me for being a coward. There's nothing to forgive. There's everything to forgive. I hurt you, hurt Emma, made a unilateral decision about our relationship because I was too scared to trust that you knew what you were doing. Then let's start over, right now. No more making decisions for each other. We're in this together or we're not in it at all. Together, Isabella said, and it sounded like a promise. I want together. Good. Because I'm not doing this halfway anymore. If we're going to make this work, we do it for real. That means Emma meets you properly. That means we figure out how to blend our lives instead of keeping them separate. And eventually, yeah, that probably means going public. Because I'm tired of hiding you. The scrutiny will happen whether we hide or not. So we might as well face it on our terms. He took a breath. But not yet. First, we need to make sure this actually works. That Emma's comfortable. That we can handle the reality of being together, not just the idea of it. When do I meet her? Properly, I mean. Tomorrow. Come to the house for lunch. Noon. Emma likes mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, and she'll probably ask you a million questions. I'm nervous. Good. Shows you care. Daniel smiled for the first time in weeks. Just be yourself. She already likes you. She just needs to remember why. They talked for another hour, working through logistics and boundaries and all the practical details that came with starting over. By the time they hung up, it was past midnight, and Daniel felt more awake than he had in months. Saturday morning, Emma helped him clean the house. Or tried to. Mostly she relocated toys from one room to another and asked questions about why Miss Isabella was coming over. Is she your friend? Emma asked, shoving blocks into a bin. Yeah, she's my friend. Like Aunt Sarah was your friend? Daniel's chest tightened. Emma didn't remember her mother. She'd been too young when Sarah died. But she'd seen pictures, heard stories, knew that Daddy had been married before. Different kind of friend, Daniel said carefully. But yes, someone important to me. Do you love her? Kids asked the hard questions so easily. Yeah, baby, I do. Does she love you? I think so. We're still figuring it out. Emma considered this. Is she nice? Very nice, and she really wants to meet you properly. I already met her, at work. I know, but this is different. This is her coming to our house as someone who's part of our lives, not just someone Daddy works with. Emma's eyes went wide. Is she going to be my mom? No, sweetheart. You had a mom. Nobody can replace her. But Miss Isabella might become someone else important in your life, if you want that. What if I don't like her? Then we'll figure it out. But I think you will. She's funny and smart, and she really wants to know you. Emma seemed satisfied with that answer and went back to organizing toys in a way that made no logical sense, but apparently worked for her 4-year-old brain. The doorbell rang at noon exactly. Daniel answered it, found Isabella on his porch holding a bag from the toy store and looking more nervous than he'd ever seen her. Hi, she said. Hi yourself, come in. She stepped inside, and Emma immediately appeared from the living room, clutching her rabbit and studying Isabella with solemn curiosity. Miss Isabella, this is my daughter, Emma. Emma, you remember Miss Isabella from Daddy's work. Hi, Emma. Isabella crouched down to her level. It's nice to see you again. Emma didn't say anything, just stared. I brought you something, Isabella continued, pulling a wrapped package from her bag. Your dad mentioned you like art, so I thought you might like these. Emma took the package carefully, unwrapped it to reveal a set of fancy-colored pencils and a sketchbook with a unicorn on the cover. Wow, Emma breathed. These are pretty. I'm glad you like them. Maybe you can show me some of your drawings later? Okay. Emma looked up at Daniel. She's nice, Daddy. He laughed. I told you she was. Lunch was chaotic in the way meals with 4-year-olds always were. Emma talked non-stop, showing Isabella her toys and explaining the complex social dynamics of preschool politics. Isabella listened with genuine interest, asked questions, and didn't talk down to her in that way some adults did with kids. By the time they'd finished eating and Emma had dragged Isabella into the living room to color, Daniel felt something settle in his chest. This could work. It wasn't perfect or smooth, but it was real. And watching Isabella lying on the floor helping his daughter color a dragon purple and green, he felt hope for the first time in months. Emma fell asleep on the couch around 3, worn out from showing off. Daniel carried her upstairs while Isabella cleaned up the lunch dishes. You don't have to do that, he said when he came back down. I want to. Besides, I'm nervous standing still. How do you think it went? I think your daughter is wonderful and terrifying in equal measure. Isabella dried her hands, turned to face him. She asked me if I was going to marry you. She what? While we were coloring, just casually dropped it in between explaining why pink dragons are better than blue ones. What did you say? I said that adults don't always get married, but when people care about each other, they find ways to be in each other's lives, and that I care about you very much. Isabella's smile was soft. She said that was okay, but if we did get married, could she wear a princess dress? Daniel laughed, pulled her close. We're really doing this. Yeah, we are. It's going to be messy. People are going to have opinions. Let them. Isabella rose up on her toes, kissed him. I'm done caring what people think. I want this, want you, want to be part of Emma's life, and I'm ready to fight for that. Even when it gets hard? Especially when it gets hard. She settled against his chest. We've already survived the worst of it. Everything else is just details. From upstairs came a small voice. Daddy? That's my cue. Daniel kissed her forehead. Stay? We can watch a movie after she goes back to sleep. I'd like that. He headed upstairs to check on Emma, and Isabella stayed in his kitchen, in his house, looking around at his life and finally feeling like she fit somewhere. It wasn't perfect. There would be more challenges, more scrutiny, more moments where they'd have to choose whether to keep fighting or give up. But for now, in this moment, they were together. And that was enough. The weeks that followed weren't easy, but they were honest. Isabella came over twice a week, always in the evenings after Emma's daycare, always careful not to disrupt the routines Daniel had built. She learned that Emma only ate chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, that bedtime stories required 3 books minimum, and that Tuesday nights were sacred because that's when they watched nature documentaries together. She's obsessed with octopuses this week, Daniel explained one evening while they cooked dinner together. Last week it was penguins, the week before that poisoned dart frogs. Smart kid. Isabella was chopping vegetables with the kind of precision that suggested she didn't cook often but approached it like a project. How do you keep up? Library, YouTube, I've learned more about marine biology in the past year than I ever wanted to know. Emma wandered into the kitchen, climbed onto a stool. Miss Isabella, did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? I didn't. That's fascinating. And they can change colors to hide from predators. And they're really smart. Smarter than dogs, probably. Definitely smarter than some people I work with, Isabella said, and Daniel laughed. They ate dinner at the small kitchen table, Emma chattering between bites about her day. Isabella asked questions, listened to answers that wandered through 6 different topics, and never once checked her phone. Daniel watched her with his daughter and felt something settle that he hadn't realized was still restless. After Emma went to bed, they sat on the couch with the kind of comfortable silence that comes from not having to perform. I got an email today, Isabella said quietly, from the board. They want to discuss my personal life at the next meeting. Daniel's stomach tightened. What did it say? That recent rumors about my relationship with an employee have raised concerns about judgment and company image, that they'd like to address it formally. She was staring at her hands. It's Marcus Webb. Has to be. He signed the NDA, but he must have talked to someone before legal shut him down. Planted enough seeds that the board started asking questions. What are you going to tell them? The truth. That I'm in a relationship with someone who used to report to me indirectly, that we followed all protocols, and that my personal life is none of their business as long as it doesn't affect company performance. They'll push back. Of course they will. They've been looking for reasons to question my leadership since I took over. Too young, too female, too willing to make changes they're uncomfortable with. This gives them ammunition. Daniel shifted to face her.
What do you need from me? Nothing. This is my fight.
That's not how this works anymore. We're together, remember? Your fights are my fights. Isabella's expression softened. They'll come after you too. Dig into your background, your finances, your fitness as a parent. Are you ready for that? No, but I'm not running from it either. He took her hand. We knew this would happen eventually. Might as well face it now. You're braver than I am. I'm terrified, but I'm also tired of hiding. Tired of pretending you're not important to me. He paused. Emma asked me yesterday if you were her girlfriend. What did you say? I said you were Daddy's girlfriend, not hers. She thought about it for a minute, then asked if that meant you'd be around more. I said yes. She said good, because you're better at coloring than I am. Isabella laughed, but her eyes were wet. I love her. Is that crazy? I've known her for what, 2 months properly? But I love her.
It's not crazy. She's pretty easy to love. So are you. She kissed him, soft and certain. I'm going to fight for this. For us. Whatever the board says, whatever comes next, I'm not backing down. Good. Because neither am I. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Isabella prepared like she was going to war. Documentation of every policy followed, performance reviews proving Daniel's qualifications, legal opinions on relationship disclosure requirements.
She was ready for every argument they could make. What she wasn't ready for was Daniel showing up. What are you doing here, she asked when she found him in the lobby outside the boardroom. He was wearing his best suit, the one he saved for major client presentations. Supporting you. Daniel, you can't be in there. It's a closed board meeting. I know, but I can wait out here. And when they ask about me, you can tell them I'm not some secret you're hiding, that I'm right outside willing to answer any questions they have. They'll tear you apart. Then let them. I'm not letting you face this alone. Isabella looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but if it gets ugly, then it gets ugly. We'll handle it. She went into the boardroom, and Daniel sat in one of the uncomfortable lobby chairs trying not to think about how much was riding on the next hour. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. When the door finally opened, Isabella emerged looking composed but tired. The board members filed past without acknowledging Daniel, which he took as either a good sign or a very bad one. Well? He asked when they were alone. They wanted me to end the relationship, said it was inappropriate, that it compromised my judgment, that the optics were damaging to the company. Daniel's chest went cold. And I told them no. I told them I'd followed every policy, that there was no conflict of interest, and that my personal life was not subject to board approval. I also reminded them that I own controlling shares of this company, and while I value their counsel, I don't answer to them on personal matters. How did they take that? About as well as you'd expect. 2 members called for a vote of no confidence. It failed. Barely. Isabella's jaw was tight, but they made it clear. One more incident, one more hint of impropriety, and they'll find a way to remove me. They have enough minority shareholders on their side to make it happen if they build a strong enough case. So we're on borrowed time. We're on notice. She started walking toward the elevators, and he followed. But here's what they don't understand. I didn't build this company to be controlled by people who think in quarterly reports and stock prices. I built it because I wanted to create something meaningful. And you, us, Emma, that's meaningful. That's worth fighting for. They rode the elevator down in silence. When they reached the parking garage, Isabella stopped. I need to tell you something, she said. Before this goes any further, before we commit to fighting this battle. Okay. When my father died, I made a choice. I chose the company over everything else, over relationships, over friends, over any kind of normal life. I told myself it was temporary, that once I stabilized things, I'd find balance. But I never did. I just kept choosing work because it was safer than choosing people. Isabella, let me finish. I need to say this. She took a breath. You make me want to choose differently. You and Emma make me want a life outside of boardrooms and quarterly earnings, but I'm scared that I don't know how, that I'll fail at this the way I failed at every other relationship I've tried to have.
Daniel stepped closer. You're not failing. You showed up for Emma's bedtime stories. You learned about octopuses. You sat through a board meeting that attacked your judgment, and you didn't back down. That's not failing. It feels like walking a tightrope. Yeah, well, I spent 4 years raising a kid alone while grieving my wife and trying to build a career. Walking tightropes is kind of my specialty. He touched her face. We're going to mess this up sometimes, both of us. We're going to have nights where Emma has a meltdown and you don't know what to do, or where work gets crazy and I feel neglected. That's normal. That's what relationships are. I want this to work. Then it will. Not because it's easy, but because we're both willing to fight for it. She kissed him there in the parking garage under fluorescent lights that made everything look washed out and unromantic. And it was perfect anyway. 3 months passed. The Morrison campaign launched to excellent reviews. Daniel's work got featured in industry publications. Isabella's company expanded into 5 new European markets, and slowly, carefully, they built a life that included all 3 of them. Emma started calling Isabella Bella instead of Miss Isabella, which happened organically one day and stuck. Isabella learned to braid hair, though her attempts were lopsided and Emma usually had to fix them. Daniel taught Isabella how to make actually good coffee, which she claimed was life-changing. They had dinner together 4 nights a week, traded off who did bedtime, and figured out how to navigate the complicated dance of blending their worlds. It wasn't smooth. Emma had a meltdown one evening when Isabella had to cancel plans because of a work emergency, and it took 2 hours and 3 stories to calm her down. Isabella struggled with not being able to fix everything with money or authority, with having to sit with a crying child and just be present. Daniel struggled with letting someone else into his carefully constructed routines, with sharing decisions about Emma's care, but they kept showing up for each other. The scrutiny at work didn't disappear, but it shifted. People stopped whispering when Daniel walked past. His work spoke loudly enough that questions about favoritism faded. And when Isabella attended a company event with Daniel as her date, officially, publicly, with no hiding, the gossip lasted about a week before everyone found something else to talk about. Turns out people get bored fast, Michael told Daniel over coffee one morning. You're not even the most interesting relationship drama in this company anymore. Marketing has 2 people from the same team who eloped in Vegas last weekend. Thank God for small favors. For what it's worth, I think you 2 are good together. She's different when you're around, softer, more human. She's plenty human. You know what I mean? The CEO version of her is intimidating as hell, but the version who shows up to company picnics and helps with the relay race, that's someone people actually like. You did that. Daniel shook his head. She did that. I just gave her permission to stop performing all the time. Fair enough, just don't screw it up. I like the campaigns we're winning because she's happy. 6 months after they'd officially started over, Isabella invited them to her apartment for dinner. Not takeout on the couch like they usually did when they were at her place. Actual dinner, cooked by a private chef she'd hired for the evening. This feels fancy, Daniel said, watching Emma's eyes go wide at the table setting. It is fancy. We're celebrating. Isabella looked nervous, which was unusual enough that Daniel paid attention. Celebrating what? The board approved my proposal. I'm creating a new position, Chief Operating Officer, someone to handle day-to-day operations while I focus on long-term strategy and growth. That's great. You've been stretched too thin. And it means I'll have actual work-life balance for the first time in 4 years. Regular hours, most of the time. Weekends mostly free. She looked at Emma. Which means I can come to more of your preschool events, if you want me to. Emma nodded enthusiastically. You can come to show and tell. I want to show everyone my Bella. Your Bella? Isabella's voice caught. That's what you are. My Bella, right? Right, yeah, I'm your Bella. Isabella looked at Daniel and he saw everything she wasn't saying. The fear that she'd never be enough.
The hope that maybe she already was, the desperate want to belong to this little family they were building. Always, he mouthed. Dinner was beautiful. Emma talked the chef's ear off about octopuses. She was back on that kick, and Isabella listened like it was the most important conversation she'd ever had. And afterward, when Emma fell asleep on Isabella's couch during a movie, Isabella carried her to the guest room without being asked. "You're getting good at this," Daniel said when she came back. "I have a good teacher." She curled up next to him. "I've been thinking about something." "Yeah?" "What if we lived together? Not immediately, but eventually, your house or my apartment or somewhere new, just all of us. All the time." Daniel's heart kicked. "That's a big step." "I know, and we don't have to rush it. But I want you to know I'm thinking about it. About a future where this isn't just dates and sleepovers, where we're actually building a life together." "Emma would love that, having you around all the time." "What about you?" "I think I'd love it too. Once we figure out logistics, and make sure Emma's really comfortable with the change." "No rush, I just wanted you to know where my head's at." They sat in comfortable silence, and Daniel thought about how far they'd come. From that desperate knock at 2:17 a.m. to this, sitting in her apartment with their daughter asleep in the next room, talking about a future that felt possible instead of impossible. The question came 8 months later, on an ordinary Tuesday evening. They were at Daniel's house, the three of them, and Emma had just finished her bath. Isabella was reading her a story while Daniel cleaned up the kitchen, and he could hear their voices drifting down the stairs. When Isabella came back down, she looked thoughtful.
"She asked me something tonight," Isabella said. "What?" "She asked if I was going to be her mom." Isabella sat at the kitchen table. Not replace her mom. She was very clear about that, but be another mom. Someone who takes care of her and loves her and is part of her family. Daniel set down the dish he was washing. "What did you say?" "I said that I love her very much, and that I want to be part of her family.
But that grown-ups sometimes use different words for relationships, and we'd figure out what word felt right together." She looked up at him. "Was that okay?" "That was perfect." He dried his hands, sat across from her. "For what it's worth, I think you already are. Part of the family. You have been for a while." "Yeah?" "Yeah. You show up. You care. You've learned more about octopuses than any person should reasonably know. That's family." Isabella's eyes were bright. "I want to move in. Officially. Your house is better for Emma anyway. She's settled here, has her school nearby, and I can work from anywhere. What do you think?" "I think we should ask Emma." They did, that night before bed. Sat on either side of her while she clutched her rabbit and looked between them with those two smart eyes. "Would you be okay if Bella moved in with us?" Daniel asked. "Lived here all the time instead of just visiting?" Emma considered this seriously. "Would she have her own room?" "We'd probably share Daddy's room," Isabella said carefully. "But you'd still have your room and all your stuff would stay the same. And she'd be here for breakfast? Every morning. And bedtime stories? Every night." Emma thought about it for another moment, then nodded. "Okay, but she has to learn to make good pancakes. Yours are sometimes lumpy, Daddy." Daniel laughed. "Deal. Bella will learn to make perfect pancakes."
"I'll do my best," Isabella said, voice shaky. They tucked Emma in together, and when they got back downstairs, Isabella broke down crying. Happy tears, she managed when Daniel pulled her close. "I just never thought I'd have this. A family. People who wanted me around not because of what I could do for them, but just because I'm me." "You're stuck with us now," Daniel said into her hair. "Fair warning." "Good. I don't want to be unstuck." Isabella moved in over the course of a month, slowly integrating her things with theirs. The apartment sold for an obscene amount of money that she donated to children's charities. She kept her art in storage except for one piece Emma liked, an abstract painting that kind of looked like an octopus if you squinted. The company thrived under her new structure. The COO she'd hired was brilliant and took on the operational burden that had been crushing her. Isabella's board stopped complaining when quarterly earnings kept climbing, and slowly, the narrative shifted from young CEO makes questionable personal choices to successful businesswoman finds work-life balance. Daniel's career grew too. He took on bigger accounts, won industry awards, got offered positions at other agencies that he turned down because he liked where he was. People stopped asking about his relationship with Isabella and started asking about his creative process. The work became the story, but the real story was quieter, more personal. It was Emma's 6th birthday party, where Isabella organized a marine biology-themed celebration, complete with an educator who brought in real sea creatures to touch. It was Sunday mornings with all 3 of them in pajamas making pancakes that were only sometimes lumpy. It was Daniel teaching Isabella to change a tire when her car got a flat, and Isabella teaching Emma about compound interest and why saving money mattered. It was ordinary and extraordinary at once. A year and a half after Isabella knocked on his door, Daniel woke up to find her side of the bed empty. He found her in Emma's room, sitting in the reading chair they'd moved in there, watching his daughter sleep. "You okay?" he whispered from the doorway. "I was thinking about that night," Isabella said quietly, "when I showed up at your door at 2 a.m. How desperate I felt, how lost, how I genuinely didn't know where else to go. I remember. I thought I was running away from something, from that awful date, from the loneliness, from the pressure of being who everyone expected me to be." She looked up at him. "But I was really running toward something, toward you, toward this. I just didn't know it yet." Daniel crossed the room, knelt beside her chair. "I'm glad you knocked." "Me too. Even though it was reckless and complicated, and we probably did everything wrong. We did plenty wrong, but we figured it out. Because you let me in. You could have closed the door that night. Should have, probably, but you didn't." "Couldn't," Daniel corrected. "I couldn't close the door because even then, even when it was terrifying and impossible, some part of me knew you were supposed to be here." Isabella reached for his hand. "I don't think I understood what love actually was before you. I thought it was grand gestures and perfect moments. But it's this. It's getting up at 2 a.m. when Emma has nightmares. It's learning to braid hair and make coffee and sit through preschool recitals. It's choosing someone every day even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You've gotten pretty good at the hard parts." "I have a good teacher." She smiled. 2, actually. "You and Emma both taught me how to be human again, how to want things for myself instead of just achieving things for other people's approval. You taught me something too, that I could let someone in again, that wanting something for myself didn't make me a bad father, that I deserved to be happy, not just functional." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Emma sleep, both thinking about the improbable path that had led them here. "I have one regret," Isabella said finally. Daniel's chest tightened. "What?" "That I didn't knock on your door sooner, that I wasted time being scared, that I almost let you go because I was too worried about what everyone else would think. We got here eventually. I know, but we could have had more time, more Sunday mornings, more of Emma at 4 and 5 and 6. I miss things being scared. You're here now. That's what matters. Is it enough? After everything I put you through, the investigation, the rumors, the board drama, is what we have now enough to make up for that?" Daniel stood, pulled her to her feet, held her close enough to feel her heartbeat. "It's more than enough. It's everything. You're everything." She kissed him there in their daughter's room, soft and certain, and when they pulled apart, she was crying again. "Happy tears," she said before he could ask. "Always happy tears now." They went back to bed, curled together in the darkness, and Daniel thought about the knock that had changed his life. About the woman who'd shown up desperate and lost and somehow found exactly what she needed in his ordinary, chaotic world. About how the best things in life rarely came from careful planning. How sometimes you just had to open the door when someone knocked, especially when it scared you. About how love wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up, about choosing someone through the hard parts and the boring parts and the beautiful parts. About building something real instead of something that looked good from the outside. Emma wandered into their room at dawn, climbed into bed between them like she did most mornings now. Isabella shifted to make room without waking, and Emma settled in with her rabbit, small and warm and absolutely certain she belonged there. And Daniel realized that this was it. This was the life he'd been surviving toward for 4 years. Not perfect, not without challenges or complications or moments of doubt, but real, honest, full. He'd spent so long thinking he just needed to get through each day for Emma's sake.
to be stable and present and good enough. But somewhere along the way, somewhere between that desperate knock at 2:17 a.m. and this quiet morning with the two people who mattered most, he'd stopped just surviving. He'd started living again, and that was worth every complication, every rumor, every moment of fear they'd fought through to get here. Isabella stirred, reached across Emma to find his hand, laced their fingers together without opening her eyes. "Love you," she mumbled, half asleep. "Love you too," he whispered back. Emma made a small sound of contentment and burrowed deeper into the blankets. Outside, Denver was waking up. Inside, they stayed in bed for another hour, the three of them tangled together, no longer hiding or pretending or protecting themselves from possibility. Just being, just loving, just living the life they'd been brave enough to choose. And in the soft morning light filtering through the curtains, with his daughter safe between them and the woman he loved beside him, Daniel Hayes finally understood something important. That night hadn't destroyed his life. It had given him one worth living, not despite the complications, but because of them. Because real things were complicated. Real things required courage and compromise, and choosing each other when it would be easier to walk away. And this, all of this, was as real as it got.